Around 1200 BC, the ancient world ended. Not slowly, not gradually. Within a single human lifetime, nearly every advanced civilization on Earth collapsed simultaneously. Cities that had stood for centuries were burned to the ground and never rebuilt. Entire languages disappeared. Trade networks that connected continents vanished overnight. And for the next 400 years, humanity entered what historians call a dark age, a period so devastating that the art of writing itself was nearly forgotten. This is the Bronze Age collapse, and we still do not fully understand what caused it. At its peak, the Late Bronze Age was the most connected world humanity had ever seen. The Mycenaean Greeks controlled the Aegean. The Hittite Empire dominated Anatolia. Egypt under Ramesses II was the greatest superpower on Earth. The Canaanite city-states were thriving hubs of trade. Ugarit, a city on the coast of modern Syria, was arguably the world's first truly cosmopolitan metropolis, with merchants from a dozen different cultures living side by side. These were not primitive societies. They had international diplomacy. They had complex economies. They had writing, art, architecture, and military power that would not be matched again for centuries. Then, within 50 years, they were all gone. The signs appear first in the archaeological record around 1200 BC. Ugarit, one of the most prosperous cities of the ancient world, was burned so suddenly that archaeologists found bread still in the ovens when they excavated it 3,000 years later. The last known letter from Ugarit's king describes enemy ships attacking the coast. He was asking for military help. The help never came. Ugarit was never rebuilt. Across the eastern Mediterranean, the pattern repeats. The Hittite capital Hattusa was burned and abandoned. Mycenaean palace culture collapsed so completely that the Greeks who came after them had no memory of their own predecessors. The great Egyptian city of Akhenaten was abandoned. Dozens of Canaanite cities show destruction layers from exactly this period. So what happened? For over a century, historians have debated this question, and the uncomfortable truth is that no single explanation has ever fully satisfied the evidence. The most dramatic theory involves the Sea Peoples, mysterious groups of raiders who appear in Egyptian records attacking from the sea. Ramesses III famously depicted his victory over them in temple carvings. For decades, historians assumed the Sea Peoples were the main culprits, a great wave of migration and destruction sweeping across the Mediterranean. But the problem with the Sea Peoples theory is this: where did they come from? Historians still do not know. And newer research suggests they may have been refugees from the very collapse they are accused of causing. People fleeing disaster, not creating it. Other theories point to climate. A 2022 study analyzing pollen records from across the eastern Mediterranean found clear evidence of a prolonged drought beginning around 1200 BC. A drought severe enough to devastate agriculture across the entire region simultaneously. Crop failures. Famine. The breakdown of the food supply chains that held these interconnected civilizations together. Then there are earthquakes. The ancient geographer Strabo noted that many cities in this region were destroyed by earthquakes in antiquity. Archaeologists have found evidence of seismic damage at several Bronze Age collapse sites, though not all of them. And there is internal rebellion. Evidence from Egypt and other sites suggests that the complex palace economies of the Bronze Age had created enormous inequality. When the system began to crack, populations may have turned against their rulers. The most compelling modern theory is also the most unsettling. All of these things happened at once. Climate change weakened agriculture. Famine destabilized governments. Internal rebellions broke out. Raiders, themselves displaced by the same disasters, attacked weakened cities. Trade networks collapsed as the economies that supported them failed. And each collapse made the next one worse. A Bronze Age system's failure. The ancient world's version of a cascading crisis. What makes this history so difficult and so important is that it resists simple answers. These were not primitive societies that fell because they were weak or barbaric. They were the most sophisticated civilizations the world had ever seen. And they were destroyed not by a single catastrophe, but by the intersection of multiple crises that their complexity could not survive. Historians who study the Bronze Age collapse increasingly find themselves reading the evidence with a sense of unease. Because the vulnerabilities that destroyed the ancient world, over-reliance on complex supply chains, climate sensitivity, political instability, inequality are not uniquely ancient. The bread was still in the ovens in Ugarit when it burned. Whoever put it there expected to eat it that night. If this ancient mystery fascinated you, there are dozens more waiting. Subscribe to History Unveiled so you never miss one.